do you guys think that we're forgetting about Ukraine? I'm just wondering, are we forgetting about Ukraine? If there is so much misinformation out there, there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much propaganda, and I have a feeling it's coming directly out of Russia. I have a feeling it's coming directly out of China. I have a feeling that it's for a reason. I have a feeling that North Korea, China, and Russia really, 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 in the 2024 United States presidential election, really they need Donald Trump to be elected. That's why this weight is so heavy. This misinformation, propaganda, hatred online. That's why it's so heavy. That's why it's so extreme right now. I think because these world leaders, these corrupt world leaders, have interest and money and power vested in one another. And so it's like they really, really need this. And that's why the justice systems and people standing up for democracy right now is so important. But in the midst of all of this, Donald Trump's gold sneakers and, the Super Bowl and the Olympics and the Pope in Portugal, which I love the Pope. That really has nothing to do with this, but just the buzzings about Selena Gomez and this and that and who's got this new Gucci bag and who got into beef on Facebook and all of the stuffs, all of the toxicity online. The Pope's not toxicity, but just how we don't have a break from this 24-hour news cycle. Every single second of every day, there's a new thing out there that just is really being pushed onto us. By the way, I hope you guys are having a great Lent season. For those Catholics out there like me, I actually thought about that, and when I mentioned the Pope, I remembered that I forgot to say that. I hope you guys are having a good Lent season. For those out there who are Catholic like me, all the distraction, misinformation, the hatred online, I think that it is very much planned that way to make us forget about Ukraine. Now, how many people have died in Israel? Say 25,000, something like that. That's already horrendous, especially horrendous to think about. 90% of that has been Palestinians. It's not been Hamas. It's not been the terrorist group that Netanyahu has been targeting, but it's actually more so just innocent children and women. It's horrid. But to think about Ukraine, they've lost almost 300,000 people. And on top of that, the silly Republicans are starting all these culture wars to distract that they won't give up the money. The 0.3% odd or something of America's GDP, 0.03% or something like that of our GDP to help Ukraine when our European allies have invested so much more. They won't even give that. They would rather let Putin destroy democracy and be the next Hitler than to give to Ukraine, and that comes back to us. It gives back to the American economy. It also increases our allyship. It increases these strong ties of democracy in the Western world. It's diplomacy. They're not even thinking about that. So I have this article from Politico. It's why the West is losing Ukraine. It says U.S. Republicans blocking aid, European right-wingers pushing to abandon Kiev, ultra-cautious leaders. What is the West's real strategy? I'm sort of disappointed that Europe is not speaking up more about Donald Trump and Putin. They're of the same ilk. Donald Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, they're of the same ilk. And during World War II, the West sort of sidestepped and just sort of crab walked its way into this maniacal man destroying half the planet, destroying people, destroying legacies. We just sort of not we, but they sort of sidestepped into that because they were like, I just don't want to get involved, right? I just want to protect myself. And every day when I don't see people speaking up about the atrocities happening in Ukraine and Israel also now, and also with racism, that's racism, sexism, misogyny. When I don't see people talking about this and all they're talking about is just what this celebrity did here, or, oh, I just got this promotion with my job. I just did that, or I went here with my family, or I got this Instagrammable moment. okay, yeah, those things matter too. But are we about to sidestep ourselves into a Hitler situation? Some of the European nations have been speaking up about this, you know. There was also this big convention that the NATO countries had in Munich, I believe it was. And so they spoke about that there, and they're being more outright, finally, you know, I've been saying this for like 2-3 years now, but they're being more forthright with go ahead and saying the war in Ukraine needs to end. Donald Trump needs to go. America is too important in the grand scheme of all this to let it just roll on through. Europe is too important in the grand scheme of this to just let it roll on through. And I'm like, okay, great, but you guys should have been saying that a long time ago. And this article is essentially saying that. This article is saying it falls on us. It's the West, not just the United States, not just the EU. The West's responsibility to protect democracy. You know, and I find it absolutely ridiculous that we have to be discussing this in this day and age. But there's always going to be some lashback to democracy, to progress, you know. That's why this is happening right now, is because the world is moving forward. The world is moving forward. Things are becoming more equal. You know, things are becoming more respectful for people from minority groups. And there are always going to be these bad faith players who hate that. Just listen to this last bit of the article. It's a bit long, and so you might not want to read the whole thing, but I do recommend that you do read it because it's really good. But even if you just want to hear this last piece. In a speech at the Munich conference, Scholes gave a hint of how the West is quietly redefining its war aims in Ukraine. Rather than say, Ukraine will win, or Russia must leave Ukraine. So this is his quote, "There will be no dictated peace. Ukraine will not accept this, and neither will we," Reuters quoted Scholes as having said. "This is certainly softer than Ukraine cannot lose," said Chow. And essentially, it means to cement the status quo. The West hasn't given up on Ukraine, but its overriding focus on risk management reveals a desire to wind down the conflict and make a deal with Putin, if possible, sooner rather than later. The question looming over the conflict is whether that approach will stave off disaster or invite something worse to come. This is where we have to put down our boundaries, and I hope that the world leaders are listening to us everyday people, and us everyday people need to be putting down our boundaries more, because we are the ones really who forge change. They are representatives, so never think that you don't have power. Your voice is your power, and you have to make it clear amongst your friends, families, the circles, the people who you love, and in your communities that democracy must forge forward in the West, in America, in Europe, you know. And so, no, don't negotiate with a terrorist. You know, Putin should not be allowed to push forward with any more of this stuff. You know, if he wants to participate in the world market, do it fairly. Don't steal it. You know, don't steal it. And I feel like that is a precedence that just has to be set down by the United States and Europe, you know, and we don't want to go into a world war. You know, either donate now, I'm sorry, not donate, but give money to the Ukraine efforts now for the U.S., or just watch us just slide on into World War III. That's really where we're at, and I don't understand why people don't understand that. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments.